Well, this is going to be a business conversation. I've got some Q&A from some listeners about business technology, business communications, and I'm going to do a little riff on business mindset. But first, I want to start with a news topic that came across my desk, the business of GLP-1 drugs. Hi, I'm Erin Power. I'm a health coach, a health coaching educator and mentor, and your host of Health Coach Radio. This podcast delves into the art, science, and business of health coaching. Whether you're aspiring to land a coaching dream job or to embark on your own entrepreneurial adventure, we cover it all. Our mission is to help you grow your career, elevate your income, change the lives of the clients who need your help, and leave a lasting mark in this rapidly growing field. It's time for health coaches to make an impact. It's time for Health Coach Radio. Okay. So jumping on this bandwagon just a tiny little bit, because we might as well. They're here to stay. Or we don't really know, do we? Here's what I think about GLP-1s, if I may editorialize for a moment. When these medications first came out 18 months, 2 years ago, and we started really hearing about them, personally, I didn't jump to any conclusion for or against because I didn't know anything about them. So I'm not going to be the kind of person who jumps to a conclusion because of any preconceived sort of bias that I have. So for example, you might have a preconceived bias that big pharma is always bad, in which case, no matter what they come up with, you're not going to like it. You're going to be kind of closed off to it. Or you might have a preconceived idea about how people need to just sort of bootstrap themselves into weight loss. And if they're taking any other approach, then they're cheating. These might be your preconceived biases, and we all have them, okay? I really would encourage health coaches to confront their biases. If that's you, if you're a health coach practicing or aspiring, it's a really good idea to confront your biases, because when you're a health coach, you're in partnership with another human being who also has their own biases, and yours might not align with them. And then what are you going to do? Argue? Fight? That's not a really productive coaching client relationship. So we do want to kind of clear slate ourselves, at least in conversations with clients. So imagine the perfect client comes across your desk, but they're on GLP-1 and you are morally opposed to them. What do? Are you going to say, get out of my face, I don't work with people who cheat on weight loss? Or will you say, I want to help this person because I don't love that they're on these drugs, and maybe they can get off them or feel good on them, so maybe I can help. It would be really good to, I think, accept some of the changing tides of the wellness industry. I don't know about you, but I've been in the wellness industry for 30 years. Started in the fitness industry when I was 18 years old, and you better believe 1 million trends have come and gone in the fitness industry for sure. I was even thinking about this the other day with respect to nutrition. Do you remember when quinoa was all the rage? Quinoa, just little pseudo seed balls of crunchy whateverness that we would sprinkle into salads or have as a side dish. Quinoa doesn't have any flavor. It's not yummy. It's not really a life-changing food. It's sort of a plant protein, I guess, and it's all right as far as proteins go. I was never really clear. As I look back, I'm not really clear why quinoa had such a moment. Do you know what's having a moment right now? Cottage cheese. Cottage cheese is having a moment right now as I'm recording this. Everyone's talking about cottage cheese. In fact, I've had clients say to me, do I need to eat cottage cheese? And I'd say, no. Why do you think you need to do that? And they'll say, well, I just keep seeing everybody talking about it everywhere. I mean, I know, Erin, you, as a health coach, you like women to eat more protein. Do I have to eat cottage cheese? I really don't like it. And it's like, no, you don't have to eat anything you don't like. And cottage cheese isn't particularly special. And it's like, why cottage cheese? Why cottage cheese? What is special about cottage cheese that it's having a moment? And I was chuckling to myself because a client had asked me, is it okay if I eat sour cream? You know, like sour cream, put on your, whatever you're going to put it on your taco salad. If you make a taco salad or whatever, you're going to put it on your potatoes if you're eating potatoes. And she wanted to know if she's allowed to eat sour cream. And I said, well, why wouldn't you be allowed to? And she said, well, it's like dairy and I don't know, it's got fat in it. And it's like, well, so does Greek yogurt. So does cottage cheese. I don't understand this is the same thing. It's a fermented semi-solid dairy product. Why do some semi-solid dairy products get a pass and others don't? It's very strange. Or another client asked me if they should swap Greek yogurt in instead of sour cream on their taco bowl. And it's like, it doesn't matter. Whichever one you like better, it's kind of the same thing. Anyway, we get into the weeds on, sometimes I find humor in how we get into the weeds on health narratives. We, those of us listening to this podcast and engaging with this content, are probably pretty, shall we say, zealous. Pretty zealous. We're pretty excited about health topics. We are devouring media. We're embroiled in content and ever-changing perspectives. And that's our job. I think that's part of my job. It's part of my job to know why cottage cheese is having a moment. That's why I'm asking you, because I really don't know why. So if you know why, please email me at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let me know what is so special about cottage cheese. Maybe you want to come on and be a guest and explain cottage cheese to the listeners and myself so I can understand why. So the point being, we have to have our fingers on the pulse of ever-changing trends, which brings me back around to GLP-1s. It's the cottage cheese of weight loss medications, if you will. So if we can be open-minded to cottage cheese, can't we be open-minded to a peptide that somebody might inject to help them have a different relationship with food and appetite and cravings and what have you? Interesting idea. So this article came across my desk, and it literally is titled, "The Business of GLP-1s Inside the New Weight Loss Drug Ecosystem." And it just runs through a few organizations, companies that are leaning in, shall we say. So you might have heard that Weight Watchers brought in like a concierge sort of medical team that was going to help, I think, prescribe and manage GLP-1 medications to Weight Watchers users. Like, what a departure for Weight Watchers. Do you know, I think about when my mom took me to Weight Watchers when I was 9 years old. By the way, my mom took me to Weight Watchers when I was 9 because she couldn't find a babysitter. Okay. She wasn't trying to disorder my relationship with food. She just couldn't find a babysitter. She was on Weight Watchers. So I had to go with her. But, you know, I remember the ladies sitting in the chairs at the community hall and lining up one at a time to go stand on the scale and get weighed in front of everybody and either receive praise or admonishment, depending on how their weigh-in went. Totally crazy. So what a departure from that sort of very analog experience of physically going to the weigh-in and being either thumbs up or thumbs down to now we have these injectable medications that might make weight loss feel easier for some people. But what's interesting as I scroll through this article, it's just some of the examples of some of the fitness and wellness industry sort of heavyweights and newcomers alike that are embracing and just accepting the GLP-1 reality. And by the way, the reason I'm talking about this is because this article came across my desk, but also I probably get asked this question from a health coach every week now. What should we do? It's one of two questions and they're very similar. What should we do in the age of GLP-1s? And what should we do in the age of artificial intelligence? And my blanket answer to both is maybe don't worry about it. Just learn about it and try to peacefully coexist because it's here now. It's not like GLP-1s are going to go away. It's not like AI is going to go away. It's here to stay. By the way, since today's conversation is about technology, I am going to speak a little bit about AI toward the end, if I remember to. Don't let me forget. So I'm reading through this article, The Vitamin Shop, which is a big brick and mortar supplement store, like a generic mall type supplement store. They're getting into the GLP-1 game. They've launched a telehealth service connecting eligible consumers with licensed healthcare providers to offer nutritional supplements and anti-obesity drugs. And they're offering compounded versions of semaglutide and tirzepatide, which is so fascinating. And as I scrolled through this article, there's actually almost like an aesthetic sort of boutique compounding brand called Hims and Hers. Hims and Hers. It's grammatically on the bubble. Hims and Hers Health. It's a telehealth platform that recognized that there was these ongoing shortages of the name brand GLP-1. So they got into the compounding game. So compounding sort of pharmacies can create, they can, I guess I'm going to use the word create. They can create these drugs, like generic versions of them. They have to kind of mildly tweak, I think, the formulation just enough so that it's not on the doorstep of like patent law. But I mean, I'm looking at this packaging. It's beautiful. These beautiful little jars, little vials with gorgeous branding and you know, branded syringes and needles, and it's beautiful. It's really nice. You can have that in your fridge and you wouldn't feel bad about it. It's just interesting. So I don't know. I think This conversation is interesting because this is also technology. This is medical technology. If you've ever really battled your weight excessively, you might find this to be the most miraculous thing. If you're a health coach who works in the weight loss space, you might feel personally threatened by it. I don't think you need to. Maybe just learn to peacefully coexist with this and all technology. So let's get into technology. I had a couple questions that came in from listeners. So Dan submitted this question. He says, do you have a recommended online system for managing content delivery and client profiles? Now, I do not. To start with, I don't have a recommended platform. What Dan is asking for is something in the realm of we might call it a client management system or a practice management system. There's a lot of management systems. Okay, so I'm going to use the phrase management system a lot, which is so funny because my very first job out of university was working in tech, and we would use phrases like management system or enterprise, and it was all this goofy sort of jargon that goes in one ear, not the other. And if you are listening to this, you're probably not super techy because not a lot of health coaches are. You don't really have to be. You don't have to be super techy, but I do think you have to embrace and accept technology. It's here to stay. It's 2024. It's basically 2025 by the time this thing goes live. We live in the future. I've said this before. We can't really afford to be super, super low tech anymore. But these tools are very user-friendly. I feel like I've said this 100 times on this podcast. But to answer Dan's question, I don't have a recommended system, but I just wanted to sort of answer this question generally. So as far as systems go, there's a few systems that you might end up with in your business. One of them is a customer management system or a contact management system, CMS, which is like your email system. Okay, so this is where when people find your website or they want to follow you or they want to get on your email list and you have the opportunity to have their contact record sort of in your ecosystem, this is where you're collecting contacts. Very, very, very useful system. I would say a CMS, and we're going to call it an email system or customer relationship management system. These are crucial. You got to have one of these. So good ones would be MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, ConvertKit, Ontraport. I don't even know. There's millions of them. But if you start Googling and names like that, you'll come across hundreds of these CRMs. You want to have a place to collect contacts. Just people who have come across you. These may or may not be clients. They will eventually potentially become clients, especially if you quote unquote own them inside your CRM. There's a greater chance you can nurture them to become your clients. Nurturing contacts to become clients is part of your job as a health coach. Okay. So that's a CRM. Then we have things like, another management system you might end up with, which I think is probably useful too, is a learning management system or a curriculum system of some kind, some place to host a curriculum. And that could be a Kajabi or a Thinkific or a Teachable or, oh my gosh, there's a million of those too. But a place where you can host a curriculum. You need to have some place to host your protocol, your program, your methodology to enroll your clients so they can do the learning on their own. I've even coached clients to simply use Google Drive. So create Google Docs that describe your protocols, and you can grant access to docs and Google Drive folders to your client, and it can behave in a similar way to an LMS, a learning management system, if you're not ready to invest in technology yet. But a few episodes ago, I think I ran through with you folks how much money I spend in my business on my supporting technology. And it's something like $800 a month, which maybe sounds like a lot, but I have a large coaching business, and that is a drop in the bucket of how much I earn. You will have to invest in technology. You will have to invest in systems. If you're not quite ready to do that yet, well, choose your battles. I definitely think you should have a CRM. I definitely think you need somewhere to host curriculum, but you can use a free option like Google Drive. But what Dan's question is, to my understanding, is managing content delivery and client profiles. So content delivery, once again, those two things I just suggested, your CRM, your customer relationship management, your email system, and your curriculum management system or your learning management system are the ways you're going to deliver content. Okay. Now for client management, you have a client in your roster. They need to be managed through the program. That depends on your program. So this is where business education and programming kind of converge. So I always think about coaching, the practice, the art science of health coaching in terms of there's the coaching element. How good are you at coaching? I hope you're good at coaching. That would be the first thing to get right. Before you even worry about technology, do you know how to coach? Are you good at that? Then there's the business elements, like the nuts and bolts, the systems, the processes. But then there's the programming, which is the methodology or the system you take your clients through. These things are kind of separate little silos, but they do converge. So anyhow, managing clients and client profiles, as Dan asks, to me, the first question I want to know is, well, how are you working with them? Like, what's the deal here? What's the relationship like? Is it one-on-one coaching calls every week? In which case, just having a document on your computer with all the notes from the conversations probably is sufficient. You can keep data points in there, and the client can report in on a check-in form as to how they're feeling, how they're doing, what their measurements are, what their data points are, and you can just collect that in a document and just have a specific client document. Fun fact, that's what I use. I have a Google Doc for every client in my roster. And when the client shows up for the coaching call, I open up their Google Doc and I type in a few notes. They also have edit access to that Google Doc, so they could type in their own notes. I love it. It's collaborative. And the experience, here's the deal. My programming, right? My health coach programming is very, very, very relationship based. I'm not collecting a ton of data. I don't care what their Whoop strap or Oura ring says. I don't want a food journal. I'm not having them track their food. I don't do that in my coaching practice. That's not part of my program. Therefore, my client profile, client management system doesn't need to be anything incredibly formulaic. It's simply conversations, right? So see how the tool you're going to use for this depends on the way you deliver your program. Does that make sense? Now, maybe you're a health coach that does a lot of data tracking, or you really want to quantify, or you want a lot of data points. So there are lots of platforms that will aggregate data from a Fitbit, from MyFitnessPal, from an Oura Ring. There's very high-tech platforms that will pull up a client's data so that the client has a dashboard in front of them. If you're a data-driven coach and your clients are data-driven people, right? So now we're getting into the realm of like marketing, communication, business development, programming. It's all, you have to make these decisions before you figure out what technology you're going to use to manage your business, quite frankly. Maybe you want to do things like progress pictures or like food journals, in which case, something like, I think we use tools called like Coach Catalyst and Practice Better and Healthy. And oh my gosh, there's a million of these practice management solutions. Or you could even Google coaching software. Now, just so you know, I've looked at all of them. Just for giggles. And I find most of them overwhelming. And I'm a tech-savvy human. It's not that the technology is overwhelming. It's just that there's so much packed into some of these tools, more than the average coach-client relationship I think would need. So here's what I'm going to say about this. I don't think the technology of your coaching relationship is where you actually start. I know that sounds counterintuitive to what I've been talking about through this whole conversation, because technology is important. But before you decide to leap to some kind of coaching technology, be a good coach, know who and how you help people, because that's gonna determine where you go with this. You might just need Google Docs. Health coaches, generally speaking, we are not bound to HIPAA, which is like the Medical Privacy Act, because we're not taking medical documentation from our clients. If you're a health coach, you're not playing in the realm of medicine. So we're not really bound to HIPAA. Now, if you're working as a health coach inside of an integrative medical clinic or some kind of collaborative team system, the team might be bound to HIPAA, in which case some kind of platform like this would be really useful to get the hang of. Practice Better is a good example, really common one that people use that is HIPAA compliant. It just has some security and safeties like encryption built in. But health coaches, generally speaking, do not need to comply with HIPAA. That might change, just so we're clear, but as of right now, recording this in November of 2024, it's not something we need to worry about. If you're keeping client documentations on a locked computer, you're good. Health Coach Radio listeners, have I got a treat for you. To get 72-hour free trial access to Primal Health Coach Institute and a 50% off coupon code to the How to Become a Health Coach Virtual Summit, featuring video interviews with over 30 industry experts. Visit primalhealthcoach.com/HCR today. So I think we can, in some cases, downplay the importance of technology. And in this particular case, I think we're overblowing the importance of technology. Do you know who and how you help people? Start with that. And then the technology that supports that will emerge. My advice would be, don't leap to the flashiest technology for your coaching and client relationship management, because it's actually not that important. The relationship's more important than the technology you use to facilitate the relationship. Now I'm going to move on to like a business communication chit chat, because another question I got, which I receive a lot often, and I do apologize if I've answered this 20 times already on this podcast. It's quite possible, but it's okay because the question keeps coming in. So people need to hear it again. You know, I always think about that when I'm working with humans, which is you listening to this, or you submitting these questions, or my clients. I may have answered this question 1,000 times, but it's the first time somebody's asked it. And I actually think, here's what I think. As a health coach, somebody who's trying to become a thought leader and have a really established point of view, it's only upside for me to reiterate my perspective on things. So for example, every few months I run a 21-day challenge, and it requires me to teach my method in kind of a rapid fire hose way to a group of people who have just come in out of nowhere. These aren't people who I've nurtured. They've been, kind of in my ecosystem for a while. They may or may not be ideal clients. They're paying for a low ticket, low barrier to entry coaching program. I'm delivering information. It requires me to deliver my own information over and over and over and over and over again to a new batch of people. And I actually think that training that muscle is really useful. So all of that to say is I'm happy to train the muscle of answering this question, which is from Nissy. And Nissy says, I understand the importance of sharing my story on social media. Can I realistically attract clients through organic Instagram growth? And if so, how long might it take to start seeing results without an existing following? Okay, so like 3 questions. Or one statement, which is, I understand the importance of sharing my story. Let's stop there. The importance of sharing your story isn't that important. You're actually not that important inside your own Instagram feed, if we're going to zero in on Instagram. The story of the client you want to attract is highly important. Speak to them. Don't make the mistake of talking about yourself, because that's not interesting to a consumer. Sorry. I think you're interesting. You're very interesting. But a person who's shopping is more interested in what's in it for them. So you have to talk about them. So if you start an Instagram feed, I would say at first you're probably going to start with like, here's what I eat in a day. Here's my workout. Here's what I do when I'm traveling. And that's okay because nobody's looking. So you have no audience. So you can say whatever you want. But pretty soon you should practice the art of flipping that narrative to, what does my ideal client need to hear? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What do they need to solve? Right? So let's use for an example, healthy eating while you're traveling. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that I'm in a hotel room. I'm actually literally holding my microphone up. It's clipped to a coffee stir stick that I got from the breakfast bar downstairs in the hotel. So real high tech setup here if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to this as a podcast, you're probably very impressed that I'm pulling this off with such great sound quality. This is a $20 lapel microphone from Amazon. If you don't have one, you got to get one. Make your content sound better, even if you're on the fly. Okay. How to eat healthy while you're traveling. So you might be traveling and you might say, I'm going to video document how I eat healthy while traveling, and then I'm going to put it on my Instagram feed. Cool. That's great. Because an ideal client of yours might watch you do that and pick up clues. So that's cool, right? But just sort of like talking about yourself and the supplements you're taking, or the time you went to bed, or your preferred type of squat in the gym, it gets a little, it's not that actionable for a person who's potentially contemplating working with you. You know how back in the day, the main criticism of Instagram was, or social media in general was, well, I don't want to be posting pictures of my breakfast all day. That's boring. That's what it used to be. But now using Instagram as a business growth platform, you have to be more client focused, more customer focused on the content. So what do they need to hear? Okay. Right out the gate, that was the first part of Nissa's question is, I understand the importance of sharing my story on social media. Actually sharing your client's struggle and offering solutions is more important. Be very solutions oriented in your Instagram rather than just sort of narrative. That makes sense. Then she says, can I realistically attract clients through organic Instagram growth? Well, I did. I built my whole business doing that. So I'm going to go with yes. Is it easy? No. But I would say starting a business from scratch is just not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, we'd all be doing it, et cetera, et cetera. It's not easy, but like this time is going to pass anyway, and you need to crystallize your point of view anyway. So you might as well do it on Instagram since it's free and everybody's on it. And literally that's where people in certain age groups anyway do a lot of their shopping. So you might as well. You need, like I said earlier, when I run my little 21-day challenge, it's the best thing I get out of that is that I'm constantly driving home my message. I'm practicing saying it. I'm saying it to people. I'm saying it out loud, out of my face hole, practicing spinning this narrative so people can pick it up and be excited about it. Same thing with Instagram. It's really a chance for you to just crystallize and clarify your message. If you ever come across my Instagram feed, and you start scrolling through it, you're going to notice that I say the same things over and over again because I have one clear point of view and I just use that platform to reiterate it. A client who's following me is not just following me. They're not hanging on my every word. They're not hanging on your every word. They don't know that you posted the same thing 1 week ago with a different picture. They don't know. They're just picking up a lot of noise in a very noisy marketplace. And if you're consistent enough, your noise will rise to the top and they'll remember you. You'll become front of mind because they'll have seen you more. There's a philosophy called the mere exposure effect. And it's how politicians win elections. It's how the Haktua girl goes viral. It's how virality happens, right? It's how people become famous and known. Now, you might want to become famous, but you want to become known. So you have to just merely expose yourself constantly in the internet to the scrolling consumer base so that they know that you exist and that you're always around. Yes, you can realistically attract clients through organic growth as long as you're speaking to them. Speak to them. Say things that they need to hear. I have a little hack for this later, okay? And then Nissy's final question is, how long might it take to start seeing results without an existing following? Well, how much time do you have? So to quote or paraphrase a very famous Instagram marketer, Gary Vaynerchuk, if you want to do something for the rest of your life, don't give up on it after 2 weeks. It's going to take a long time. It's going to take all the time. It's never going to not take time. You're not going to arrive to success here. It is always a moving target. So when you say, how long will it take to start seeing results? My question is, what results are you looking for? Because there's the outcome goal, the thing you want, which is probably a successful business where you're making an income and an impact that makes you really feel proud and happy. But then there's the little tiny process goals that lead up to that. I got a new follower, somebody commented, somebody booked a call. They didn't sign up, but at least I got to run through a sales call framework with them. Hey, now I've got a new client. I've got one client. I've got 2 clients. I've got a third client. I've got 10 clients. I've got 100 clients. Like, look at the continuum here. How long will it take to start seeing results? Completely unknown. It depends on what results you're looking for. I really do think that as a culture, and this is just a quick cultural narrative, we could get a little bit more, we could practice getting a little bit more excited about leading indicators rather than just the lagging indicators of success, because success is a lagging indicator. I think like big S success, I'm making money, I'm making an impact, I'm making a difference. That's a lagging indicator of the work you're going to put in now. In the meantime, you have to anchor to the leading indicators, the tiny little small s successes that are along the way. So how long might it take to start seeing results? Well, it might take 5 minutes. You might get a follower after your first post. Results. It might take 5 months. You might have, oh my gosh, I have 500 people on my email list. I'm emailing people, 500 of them. 500 possible leads. It might take 5 years. Oh, I'm making $250,000 in my coaching business, whatever the thing is. It might, and anywhere in between. But the sales cycle for online service-based businesses marketed through platforms like Instagram it's this data point always changes, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 16 to 20 months. On average, somebody has to follow you for more than a year, almost 2 years before they might buy from you. So what are you waiting for? If you start now, that happens sooner. All right. So I had one more perspective I wanted to share, business mindset. And it actually just honestly leapfrogs off of what I just shared when I was talking to Nissi, which is that I think the people who are very successful in health coaching are the ones who are willing to persevere when it's hard. Well, actually, that's true of anybody who's successful in anything. If you're successful in anything, it's because you were willing to persevere when it got hard. So you hit the dip, you hit a wall, you came up against a barrier, and you figured out how to solve it, pick yourself up and move on. You practice the skill of learning to embrace failure and struggle as a learning opportunity. I know this sounds like a lot of woo-woo pep talking, but I have to do this every single week in my business. For example, last month, I had the potential for one of the most epic months in my whole business. Okay. I had 35 discovery calls in my calendar. 10 of them said yes. That's great. 10 people said yes and paid me for my high-ticket coaching practice. That's a substantial 5-figure month that I had. 25 didn't say yes. And as excited as I was about the 10 new clients I brought on, it didn't take very long for me to start obsessively fixating on the 25 clients that didn't sign up and then thinking, oh my gosh, what if I had signed all 35 of them? That would have been a life-changing month. That would have been a 6-figure month. So thinking about and becoming sad and frustrated and fraught by the 25 people who didn't sign up for my program. What did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with them? What's wrong with this system? Is it the GLP-1s? Is it AI? Why? Why didn't they sign up? I don't know. I should figure that out. That's my next step. I can't just wallow in 25 people that didn't sign up with me. First of all, I have 10 new clients I need to support, which I'm excited about. But secondly, I have nothing but learning to do from the 25 who didn't sign up. There's no way I want to allow that to happen again. If I allow that to happen again, I'm just rolling over. I'm just deciding I don't want to do this anymore. So you're making decisions, and doing nothing is doing something, right? If I say, oh, this sucks, I can't believe how bad I am at this. Man, most people who I spoke to on the phone didn't want to work with me. I'm just going to go get a real job again. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to just throw away 12 years of effort because 25 people didn't sign up with me. And I'm just going to do nothing with this. I'm just going to wallow in it. Doing nothing is doing something. Doing nothing is deciding that I'm going to accept this the way it is. And that's not a business mindset. That is not a successful business mindset. And when I say business mindset, I'll be really honest with you. I'm starting to get the ick around business coaching narrative a little bit. It's a little bit noisy, at least maybe for me, maybe for you, because, I'm an online business owner. So I'm hearing and absorbing and being targeted with a lot of business coaching narrative because I'm the target audience for that. And it's getting a little repetitive. It's getting a little old. But because this question came in to me today, when I talk about business mindset, I'm actually not even talking about business. I'm talking about your growth mindset generally. Do you believe in your potential for anything and everything? And what would you do if the thing you wanted mattered the most to you? We are hardworking, non-lazy, productive creatures. You have been in other aspects of your life. You have to simply harness that here. So it's barely business mindset at all. This isn't really business coaching. This is personal development coaching. You have to be ready to develop yourself and be really freaking uncomfortable sometimes. And knowing that, and here comes a business coaching cliche, your growth is on the other side of the discomfort. My growth is on the other side of figuring out why 25 women didn't sign up with me last month. I have to push up against my natural inclination, which is to turtle. Like, oh, I can't believe how bad that was. Turtle. I'm just going to pretend it didn't happen. That's my natural inclination, because the conflict, the friction of that is immense. The friction of having to confront why 25 people said no is too immense and it feels uncomfortable physically in my body, uncomfortable to contemplate it. But if I decide to turtle and accept that 25 people said no, then I'm just perpetuating the narrative that people say no to me. But instead, what I need to do is be productive, grown-ass adult about it and say, well, why did they say no? What would have made them a yes? Now I can ask them that. And quite frankly, I'm going to. There's a few people who I thought were for sure yeses, and they changed their mind at the very last second. And I'm going to ask them, hey, Sally, if you have a minute, I just would really love to know why you decided not to move forward. That feels a bit awkward to ask, but I have to know. I have to know. I want to know. Like, this is the thing. If my natural inclination is to turtle and pretend it didn't happen, then me wanting to actually email people and ask them why they said no is such an obvious outcome of my own personal development. I've changed as a human being because me 10 years ago would have cringed at the idea of emailing somebody to ask them why they didn't work with me. Now it's the only thing I can do. It's my only next step is to ask them why they said no. And I'm going to. And then to close the loop on my technology chit chat today. And by the way, I do love talking about technology, but I also love talking about other things. So if you have questions you want me to cover on this podcast, I am a health coaching educator. I am a successful health coach in private practice and have been for 12 years. I have a lot of wisdom to share with you. So, hey, reach out to me at hello@primalhealthcoach.com with your questions. Many of the questions that I'm answering on this podcast come from our student body at Primal Health Coach Institute, where I'm on the faculty. But I love hearing from coaches listening, whether you're new in business, and I really love hearing from coaches who are very established in business. And if that's you and you have an established health coaching business, I really would love to hear from you because maybe I could interview you. I could learn from you. Wouldn't that be amazing? Anyway, I do talk about technology a lot because, quite frankly, it's the questions I get asked the most. But I would like to also talk about you and who you're going to become. Like, let's not relinquish all the potential success of our health coaching business as some secret technology, right? Most of the wisdom and the sort of strength of character and this raw skills and talent you need are actually within you somewhere. And if they're not strong, you need to strengthen those muscles, much like I'm strengthening my muscle by asking my clients why they didn't sign up with me rather than just pretending it didn't happen, right? So you've got to lean into personal growth and then your business will grow. And that's a business mindset. A little pep talk for you. As some parting wisdom, I want to share with you how I have been leveraging the learnings from these 25 failed client consultations to learn more and using technology to do so. So before every one of these consultations, and I just did that this month, this is something that I tried brand new this month, right before the client consultation, I opened up ChatGPT and I said to the AI robot, hey, I'm meeting with Sally this afternoon. Here's what Sally told me she wants to work on. These are her main struggles. This is what she's tried before that has failed. These are her goals. These are her dreams. These are her pains. These are her fears. And I'll say, what kinds of questions should I ask Sally to get to the root of her pain and struggle and to identify the gaps between where she is now and where she wants to be? And I'll tell you what, ChatGPT took that intake questionnaire and fed me back some amazing conversation-driving questions that I could fold into the discovery call to get the client thinking. And these questions are amazing. They really do drive home, again, pain, struggle, barriers, gaps, all the things that prevent people from having success. I loved using this tool, but I don't know if it panned out. But I have this conversation in ChatGPT. I can say, okay, ChatGPT, the following 25 people said no. What do you notice about them? What's similar between these people? What did I miss? What is it about these women? Because I have, by the way, all the transcripts from our Zoom calls as well, so I can fold that in. I could have ChatGPT analyze how or why I missed the mark on those 25 calls. And I'm going to. Another thing I'm using ChatGPT for, I started a new conversation with ChatGPT and I said, and I quote, I'd like to hire and train you for the role of director of content. Are you familiar with the work of Gary Vaynerchuk? So I just mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk earlier in this episode. I think he's a guy who just has a really sensible and very just super productive, focused approach to content marketing and marketing in the digital age. So I asked ChatGPT if it would be interested in coming on board as my director of content and if it was familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk's approach. And ChatGPT said, yes, I'm very familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk's work. Explained a little bit about Gary V. I said, great. I want to model Gary's approach. How can I best train you to be my content director? So when I say content director, I want ChatGPT to tell me what to say. So I've been flapping my gums on Instagram for a long time, 12 years. I have a really clear point of view, but I'm also running out of things to say. And I also need to figure out ways to say it that it gets right into the center of the heart of the matter that my clients are struggling with, the things that are keeping them on the bubble from working with me. So I asked ChatGPT to tell me how to train it to be my Gary Vaynerchuk. And it did. It gave me a 10-step list of ways to train ChatGPT, the questions to ask, the prompts to provide. I'm going to have ChatGPT ask me questions. You can do that. Ask me 50 questions about my ideal client, and it will. And then you can start to get very clear about who this person is, what you should say to them. Once the robot has a sense of who your ideal client is, you can say, give me 10 ideas for YouTube videos or Instagram captions that will speak to the pains and struggles of my ideal clients. By the way, since I've posted all of my client consultation application forms into ChatGPT, that's all in there now. I can say, hey, ChatGPT, friend, go back into the consultation strategy conversation we had and pull out for me the top 25 major concerns that women seem to have with their bodies at this stage of life. Now I have clear the top 25 things that all women seem to be struggling with are, and I can start to create content based on that. Okay, so another little deep dive on technology. The housekeeping staff is outside in the hallway of this hotel making a lot of noise. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Do let me know if you have more things you want to talk about. Reach out at hello@primalhealthcoach.com, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.